This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, call to order. Roll call.
Mike Berganini.
Good evening.
Lloyd Colston.
Here.
Brandon Jellings. Chris Johnson.
Here.
Dwayne Eastman.
Here.
Cody Richardson.
Here.
And Dottie Smith.
Here. Would you review your minutes of September 10th?
Move we approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Do I have a motion? Gentlemen, I need a motion to approve.
You had the motion. You just need to vote on it.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. And believe it or not, I just woke up. I know that's right. All in favor, signify with aye. Opposed? Okay, minutes passed. Public hearing, we need a motion to open a public hearing to consider the advisability of the amendments to the off-premises billboard signs regulations.
I so move.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay,
Pick your person.
public hearing is open. It's here.
All right.
Have that.
I'm going to bring up the sheet. All right, so we had this discussion in September, so I'm not going to dwell on it for a long time, but I will do a brief little background for the sake of the record. So remember back in June, we had a public hearing for a billboard sign and generated a lot of public outcry, we'll put it that way. And so we tabled that. And the next meeting in July, I believe it was, ultimately we brought in all that discussion, including a public survey, and ultimately the sign was denied by this body. Seeing as the sign met the current regulations, I felt it was important that we go and look at our regulations and revise them to meet what we were really looking for. And so that's what we did at the September meeting, went over those regulations. And so agreed everything was where it needed to be. And so we set the public hearing for this month. And so here we are at the public hearing. And so I'm going to go real briefly go over these proposed amendments again they're all in Article 27 of the sign regulations, or of the zoning regulations. First of all, the first change had to do with 27-301, and that was interior signs. I still don't know what the purpose of the regulation was, and so I just struck that out. So we will not be regulating signs on the inside of a building, and we will not be, well, we will be regulating signs that are interior to the site, like menu boards, but they're generally exempt from the square footage requirements. So that's stricken. The next section that we touched was the C3 district. On my little cheat sheet, that's a typo. It should be the C3 district. And I removed a little paragraph that talks about the billboard or off-premise signs not counting toward the district maximum. And this gets moved down into the billboard section. So down to 27-1304, which we'll get to in a second. So that covers everything that's not in the billboard section of our code. So in the billboard section, the intro, the 1301, section 1301, it talks about where these are allowed. So we we went ahead and kept that the same in the C3, the I1, the I2 districts. And it still requires a conditional use permit in order to have one of these signs. So they would still come to this body. And I also added a sentence in there that talks about the sign structure needing to meet any requirements that KDOT has if it's still on the highway. It might be implied, but we don't like to just apply stuff. We can put a sentence in there. So the next section, 1302, removed a provision that required a setback of 50 feet. I think we originally had that in there because we thought that was a KDOT requirement, but they actually don't require that. They may have a setback from the edge of the pavement, but not from the edge of the right of way. So we just struck that out. We wouldn't allow them on the right of way anyways in the city limits. We're going to make them be on the property line or even inside it. And so then we just had to renumber those sections. The next section, 1303, has to do with height. One of the concerns from city residents was that the proposed sign was going to be 50 feet tall. And that's what that sign was going to be. And so cut that in half at 25. That matches the height allowed for signs that are on premise in those districts. So it shouldn't stand out like a sore thumb is kind of the idea. As far as area, that was another cause of concern. The maximum in the regulations was 750 square feet. And based on paragraph B, that is both sides. So it's 750 total. And so what I did was reduced it to 300, which is about half of what the proposed sign was going to be. And again, that's 300, so it's our total. So it's 150 on each side is how we would regulate that. That is a little bit bigger than what an on-premise sign we would allow for an on-premise sign. But I think that's probably acceptable. We're not going to probably have a lot of these. And that gives the owner of the sign a little bit of differentiation still. Also in that section, that's where we put in that provision that an off-premise sign does not count towards the on-premise allowable area. So I think in a C3 district, it's 250 square feet total signage, or maybe it's 300. I don't know what that number was. Oh, it's 300. I think that's right. That would be allowed. This would not count against that. So that owner of that business that's on the site could still have their normal signage. And so that's what that was about. The next section that we covered was lighting. Mostly that's just reworded in order to clarify what we're trying to get there. We don't want any of the lighting to cause a traffic hazard. And so that was reworded, and then added a sentence that said that these sort of signs cannot be flashing signs. They cannot be electronic message center. So it has to be just a static sign. That proposal, by the way, was just a static sign too.
That eliminates scrolling.
That would, yes. Anything other than just a static, yes, probably vinyl graphic is what you're going to really see up there, or painted on. And finally, the last thing had to do with minimum spacing. So before, you could have a second billboard or off-premise sign within 300 feet of another one on the same side of the street. Based on some of the other regulations that I looked at, 800 seemed to be a little more reasonable. It also spreads them out just that much more, which is kind of what the feeling was, both from you guys and the public. It's okay to have these, but they need to be small, they need to be short, and there needs to be not very many of them. And so that's really what we're trying to do with these revisions is meet that. There was a couple cities that had larger. Topeka's was over 1,300, and Manhattan, if it was an electronic sign, it'd be 5,000. So, of course, that's part of why I wanted to put that sentence in there about the electronic, so that we don't run into that. But I would say if you wanted to change that in the future for whatever reason, you want a larger separation for those. I don't know if you've seen it. I was in Tulsa, I think it was, somewhere in the outskirts of Tulsa in October. And there's a casino there. And that sign is, that's an on-premise sign because there's casinos right next to it. That sign is probably at least 1,000 square feet and it's a digital display. And you can see it right there on the highway.
In comparison, is the Seven Clans over 5,000 or is it under?
The square footage of Seven Clans, that is a very large sign. It's probably somewhere in the 1,000 to 1,000 square feet range, something like that.
Yeah, that's
a very large.
That's okay out in the country.
Yes.
Like that. But coming into town, I think that would disrupt a lot of people and even the businesses that's sitting in front.
Right. So that's all I have. So open to any questions. Doesn't look like we have any public here. And we do not have anybody online besides Wade.
Okay. Any discussion, gentlemen? Are you happy with what's
I have a
proposed?
couple of items.
Simple, very simple.
Yeah, simple.
Boyd, did you have something?
I have a couple of items.
Okay. Go ahead.
Item one, I had a citizen approach me that couldn't be at this meeting tonight and asked me what happens if we adopt this and it's not pleasing to them. And my answer was, as always, the citizen can apply for a variance. Number two is that since the meeting's recorded, when will the meeting record be published so that the citizen can view it?
So for that, this recording, not the minutes, obviously, but this recording, I'll probably upload it as soon as tomorrow morning. So that'll be available quickly. Obviously, the minutes will approve at the next meeting, but.
And was my answer correct that any action that we take that a citizen doesn't approve of, they can request a variance?
You can get a variance to anything that's like numerical. So for instance, if somebody wanted to have a sign that was 30 instead of 25 feet, they could ask the Board of Zoning Appeals to grant variance on that. Is that what you're asking?
That's what I was asking, and thank you.
Other concerns?
When, yeah, I got a question. If a business in town wants to put a sign, a bigger sign, the variances still have to, whatever it is, they still have to follow. What if they want to put something on the roof? Roof that hold it, is there?
We do not allow, these regulations do not allow them to be on the roof, I don't believe.
So if somebody wanted to do that, they'd have to come to the commission, right?
Yeah, that we would probably have to specifically amend these regulations again. Trying to see, I thought that was actually in there. Let me see if I can look in the actual regulations to see. I thought there was something that said, oh, yes. So yeah, 1302, where it talks about location. That's this one here. So it says billboards may not be attached to the roof or wall.
Okay.
So,
I didn't even look.
so yeah, it is specific under. So if somebody wanted to do that, we would have to amend this section again, if we wanted to allow it.
Instead of amending, could it be a variance?
Not in this case, because that's like spelled out, hard coded into the regulations, so. Usually, when it comes to a variance, it has to be about a number. So the height could be varied from the number, the size, type of thing. And I would argue even that distance between signs.
Any further discussion? Not, I need a motion to close the public hearing.
I so moved. So we close the hearing?
I'll second it.
All in favor, signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Public hearing is closed. Do you need a motion from us?
Yes, I need a motion to approve the regulation changes.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, could we have a motion to approve?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the changes as lined out by Josh.
And I will second it.
Any further discussion? Do you need roll call or just voice comment?
We do need to do a roll call according to our bylaws.
Yeah.
So Mike Berganini,
Aye.
Lloyd Colston,
Aye.
Chris Johnson,
Aye.
Dwayne Eastman,
Aye.
Cody Richardson.
Aye.
And Dottie Smith.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Passes. Do you have anything further for us?
I don't, other than to say that we do have an item for the January meeting. They're requesting a conditional use permit for a short-term rental, like an Airbnb or something. They haven't decided what they're gonna do there, but
Where is it?
it's 311 Highland Drive.
Island Drive.
The B&B.
Not necessarily a B&B, just a short-term where they're renting out their house for a couple days or something.
I love it.
And our regulations in the R1 and R2 district require the conditional use for them. If it's R3, the way we set it up, they don't have that. Up there, they would. So
Would this be in form again, in type rental?
Mhm.
Okay.
the main concern, and we sort of talked about that when we did our regulations briefly anyways. In like a college town, they have a lot of problems with people doing parties and stuff like that and those. And so sometimes neighborhoods can feel upset with things. So this allows the neighbors to come and talk to you about any concerns they have.
This is January what?
So that'd be January 14th. That's all I got.
Okay, if there's no further discussion or items gentlemen would like to bring up, I have a motion to adjourn.
I'll move that we adjourn.
And I will second happily.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor,
Aye.
Aye.
go home.
17 minutes.
That's good, yeah.